Chapter 1. What if your kindest act turns into your greatest humiliation? Martha never expected that the search for a simple white dress would expose the cracks in her family's love, and the cruelty of strangers. Martha Parker had always believed in fairy tales. Not the kind with glass slippers or pumpkin carriages. She was too old, too wise, and, as her mother liked to remind her, too heavy for such nonsense. Still, she clung to a single, stubborn dream, that one day, she would walk down the aisle in a white dress, lace fluttering, every eye in the room on her, not for her size, but for her happiness. She tried to start each day with kindness. Every morning before work, she left a hot coffee on her mother's bedside table and helped her neighbor, Mrs. Epstein, carry groceries. She listened, she comforted, she tried, always tried, to be the bigger person. Sometimes, she joked to herself, being the bigger person was all too easy. Martha's fiancé, Thomas, was the only man she'd ever met who never mentioned her weight. He simply held her hand and, on the day he proposed, whispered, "You're the one I want beside me. Always." But in the world outside Thomas's arms, kindness didn't always return the favor. And this time, it started with a phone call. "Hello? Yes, I'd like to book an appointment for a wedding dress fitting. Size, 26. Silence. Then the soft click of a disconnected line. She tried again. And again. Some places told her bluntly, "We don't carry sizes above 16. Others were more creative, "Our seamstress is on vacation. Maybe try next year?" Martha pressed her phone to her chest, the sting of humiliation burning. Was she asking too much? She'd spent her whole life squeezing herself into too small spaces, apologizing for taking up room, at the dinner table, on the bus, in family photos. But now, on the verge of the biggest day of her life, she couldn't even buy the dress. At home, her mother shuffled into the kitchen, hair wrapped in curlers, bathrobe cinched tight. "Don't cry, Martha. Maybe just wear something simple. Not everyone gets a white dress." Martha tried to laugh, but her voice cracked. "I just want to look like a bride, Mom." Her mother's eyes softened, just for a second, before hardening again. Not everything's made for everyone. That night, she lay awake, scrolling through bridal websites, reading stories of miracle transformations and brides who lost weight for love. Each headline was another slap. She closed her eyes, remembering all the times she'd watched from the sidelines, never the lead, always the supportive friend, the funny aunt, the afterthought. But now, she was supposed to be the main character. Was that too much to ask? When Thomas found her crying, he wrapped her in his arms. "We'll find a way," he said, kissing her hair. "We always do." But Martha knew that sometimes, love wasn't enough to fight the world. Not when the world had already decided who was allowed to wear white, and who wasn't. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss what happens next. Chapter 2. What happens when you fight for your dream, and the world fights back even harder? Martha was about to learn that some battles aren't just about fabric and lace, but about dignity, family, and the secrets we're taught to keep. She called every shop in the city. Some she begged, some she bribed. She even tried lying about her size, hoping to squeeze in, to simply be seen. The doors stayed closed. Thomas, bless his sweet heart, took matters into his own hands. He suggested a road trip, a drive 2 hours out of town to a boutique that claimed we fit every bride. The website boasted smiling faces, all shapes and sizes, the promise of acceptance. Martha dared to hope. The boutique smelled of lavender and promises. The saleswoman, tall, thin, smiling with teeth too perfect to be real, greeted them. Martha tried to explain, quietly, that she was looking for a plus-size gown. The woman's smile flickered. Of course, dear. Our specialty section is in the back. They followed her past rows of dazzling white gowns, trailing behind like ghosts. In the back, 3 lonely racks, one size 20, 2 sizes 18, a handful of beige sacks that could have doubled as shower curtains. This is it? Thomas blurted, unable to hide his anger. Martha's cheeks burned. It's fine, she lied. I'll try this one. The dress pinched in all the wrong places, refusing to zip. The zipper stuck, then snapped. The saleswoman coughed. We can always order in, but, well, it takes months. In the dressing room, Martha's reflection mocked her, pale skin squeezed, arms bulging, stomach pushed into unnatural shapes. She laughed, bitter and sharp, tears threatening to spill. Why was it her fault that the world refused to see her? Outside, she heard her mother's voice. The words drifted under the dressing room door. If only she tried harder. You know, when I was her age. Martha's fists clenched. Why did her own mother act like this was a moral failing? Like she'd done something wrong just by existing? She walked out, dress half-zipped, face wet with tears. Let's go, she whispered to Thomas. I don't belong here. In the car, the silence was suffocating. Finally, Thomas said, You don't have to take this, Martha. Why are you letting them win? She stared out the window, watching the world blur by. Because I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of being told to shrink. At home, her mother sat at the kitchen table, purse open, bills scattered. Maybe you should cancel. Weddings are expensive. Besides, it's just a dress. Martha stared at her mother. For the first time, she saw the fear behind her words, the shame, the anxiety, the old wounds that had never healed. Was it possible her mother's cruelty was just her own pain, projected outward? Or was that just another excuse? That night, Martha made a decision. She wouldn't give up. But she wouldn't beg either. She was done asking for permission to be happy. This is the turning point. Everything you've waited for is coming. Stick around to see how Martha puts everyone in their place. Chapter 3. Can one reckless act change everything? Martha was about to risk it all, her pride, her peace, even her family's fragile loyalty, to prove she deserved to be seen, just as she was. Martha woke up the next morning not because of the sunlight, but because of a heaviness inside, resolve, finally stronger than doubt. She didn't want to wait for a miracle anymore, it was time to act. At breakfast, her mother sighed, maybe you should just sew something yourself? Women used to do that without making a tragedy out of it. That's when Martha made her decision. She smiled to herself over her coffee. At work, she Googled, custom dressmaker for wedding gowns. Calling was terrifying. What if she heard, sorry, we don't work with those measurements, again? But on the second call, a woman answered with a voice as warm as a blanket. Of course, darling. I once made a dress for a bride in a wheelchair. Your only job is to be happy. Martha almost cried. On her way to the fitting, she noticed she was walking tall for the first time in days. The studio smelled of flour and soap. Faded photos of smiling brides hung on the walls. The seamstress, Mrs. Carter, measured Martha without surprise, without judgment, as if women like her walked in every day. Do you want lace or satin? She asked. I want white, real white, so that everyone can see me, Martha blurted out. Mrs. Carter laughed. White it is. Let the whole world watch. That evening, Martha allowed herself to hope. She was no longer afraid of not fitting, the fear stayed in the dressing rooms she'd left behind. But at home, a new blow waited. Her mother was flipping through old photo albums. "Are you really going through with this?" she asked, pointing at the sketch. "Yes," Martha said firmly. "And I won't apologize for who I am." At that moment, Thomas came in holding a box with an old magazine. "Look what your aunt gave me," he said. On the cover, a young, slim woman in a wedding dress. Martha immediately recognized her mother. "I made everything myself," her mother said quietly. "Didn't want anyone to see how imperfect I was." Suddenly, Martha understood, her mother had always been afraid of being seen. And she'd tried to make her daughter invisible, too. But Martha was done disappearing. "I don't need perfection. I need joy," Martha said. But her mother just turned away. "Don't expect support. Don't embarrass the family with this spectacle." That night, Martha cried not because of the cruel words. She cried because she lost something important, a childhood illusion of unconditional love. But what came next, Martha could never expect. The next truth would turn everything she thought she knew upside down. Don't miss what happens next. Chapter 4. What if the family secret you've always feared was never about you? Martha's quest for a simple dress was about to unravel a decades-old deception, and nothing would ever be the same. The wedding dress was coming together, slowly, stitch by stitch, like a new skin Martha was finally allowed to wear. But the house grew colder. Her mother stopped speaking, Thomas avoided any sensitive topics. Everything seemed frozen, waiting for a storm. One night, Martha overheard a whispered argument in the kitchen. Her mother and Aunt Linda were hissing at each other. "If she finds out, it's over," her mother spat. "You have to tell her." Linda shot back. "It's not her fault." Martha froze by the door. Her mind spun, this wasn't about the dress. This was about something she'd never been told. The next day, mustering her courage, Martha asked outright. "Mom, why are you so afraid of my happiness?" Silence. So Martha went to Aunt Linda. She hesitated, but finally caved. "It's not your fault, Martha. Your mother was always afraid of other people's judgment." "Why?" "When you were born, she was the heaviest girl in town. They bullied her, laughed at her, didn't let her go to prom. She promised herself her daughter would never stand out. But I always stood out." "Yes. And you survived where she broke. That's why it hurts her to watch." Martha realized she hadn't been fighting her mother, but her mother's old wounds. Now the choice was hers: keep living in the shadow of someone else's fears, or step into the light on her own terms. That evening, Martha called Mrs. Carter and asked for gold embroidery on the dress. "I wanted to be something my mother would never have dared." When Thomas saw the sketch, he just smiled. "Now that's you." And her mother? Her mother cried, not from happiness, but from helplessness. "I can't be there if you do this." "You're invited, but I won't beg," Martha said calmly. For the first time, she felt like an adult. But the final meeting before the wedding will put everything in its place. Who will stand with Martha? Whose forgiveness will matter most? Don't miss the finale, it will change what you think about acceptance.